Now we move on to our next session, and here we are putting the focus on our host for the IEC 2026, which is the Turkish Space Agency that will host the IEC 2026 in Antalya. And it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the topic, which is Turkey on the way to the moon. And we are excited to welcome on stage the president and chairman of the board of the Turkish Space Agency, Yusuf Kirac, and the faculty member of the Koç University of Istanbul and the CEO of Delta V Space Technologies Corporation and designated IPC co-chair also for the IEC in 2026, Arif Karabeyoglu. And they will give us a fireside chat to talk about the exciting program, National Space Program of Türkiye, but also putting the focus a bit on Antalya and the IEC in 2026. Please.
Thank you, Christian. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to these sessions. Actually, 2026 very important years for us. I mean the Turkey and the Turkish Space Agency. We have the two main goals. One of them is the ISC Antalya 2026. Antalya is the pearl of the Mediterranean Sea. Don't worry about it. We make it is very, I think it's the very good progress in that side. The second important mission, 2026, or actually moon missions. So this date is very important for us. Today, I will call the Professor Karabeyoglu for the explain our moon missions. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And distinguished delegates of the IAF, it's my pleasure actually to talk about Turkey's aspirations in space for the next 10 years, but maybe a little shorter than that with the Moon Project. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this beautiful landscape, lunar landscape. I want to really start with this thing. Okay, Turkey has actually set some goals, 10 goals for the next 10 years. And the first goal was to send the first Turkish astronaut to space, and we've achieved that within the last 2 months successfully. So that was the first one. I'm not going to go through them all, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about the very last one. The last one is the lunar mission. Turkey really wants to go to the moon. There are multiple reasons for that, but the most important one is moon is important for Turkey because moon is on our flag. It's a symbol for us. Moon is important for me. It's a personal thing because I was born in 1969, and maybe the reason I'm in this room, maybe I'm doing aerospace, is the Apollo program. So moon is very, very important for us. What I'd like to do here is I'm going to briefly mention what the program is all about, give you a little bit of technical information, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Antalya. Okay, we have 2 stages to the moon mission. The first phase of the moon mission is essentially a hard landing. We're going to take our spacecraft from the Earth orbit to the moon, and then we're going to go into the lunar orbit, and we're going to spend some time there, and then we're going to finally hard land. Sometimes we call it crash land. Okay, so that's the first phase. The second phase is going to actually come maybe 3-4 years after the first one, is going to be a soft landing. For that, we're in the process of developing landing engine technologies. As you know, throttling is critical there, and that's something that we're doing, okay? Why moon? I actually gave you the more emotional response, but more logical and more structured response is, first of all, we want to be one of the few countries who actually managed to touch the moon as Turkey. We have ambitions in space, and that's a good landmark, okay? The second one is, we really want to show the technology in the sense that we can actually go to the lunar orbit and we can stay there. We can actually conduct our mission. That's an important mission for us. And gaining some deep space experience. I mean, in Turkey, we've so far been in low Earth orbit or geo orbit. We haven't exceeded geo. as Turkey. So this is the first time we're going to actually get out of the magnetosphere of Earth. We're going to go into deep space. We're going to go into the radiation environment. And we really want to understand that. Finally, that really has some personal implications because I'm heading the company doing this, is developing an indigenous propulsion system, hybrid propulsion system, actually to utilize this propulsion system to take us to the moon, okay? So those are the main motivations. And this is kind of the details of the first mission, which is the hard landing to the moon. First, we're going to have some other country, some other nation take us to the low Earth orbit. But it's going to be a high-energy low Earth orbit. The perigee is going to be about 400 kilometers, but the apogee is going to be very high. We're talking about over 125,000 kilometers. So we're not in the transfer orbit yet, but we're close. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to fire our indigenous hybrid rocket motor. We're going to orbit raise, okay? We're going to increase the energy level. And then we actually have a secondary propulsion system as well on the mission, and we're going to fire that chemical propulsion system to finally put us into the lunar transfer orbit. We're going to inject into the lunar transfer orbit, okay? And then once we reach the moon, we're going to put ourselves into the lunar orbit. We're going to actually decrease the altitude by doing multiple burns. We're going to stay in the orbit. We're going to do some science, okay? And finally, we're going to refire the hybrid rocket motor to put us actually on the moon. So we're going to meet the moon by doing that one last firing, okay? So the whole mission is planned for 3 months, but depending on the propellant used, it may actually last for up to 2 years, okay? So we may have some more time there. The mission, I talked about that actually briefly, but to recap it, the important parts of it, I'm going to repeat here. We really want to get some experience to operate around the moon. So for the next phase of the mission, when we do soft landing, we want to understand how we can do that. We want to understand what the gravitational field around the moon is, how we can use that understanding to design the more challenging soft landing for the lunar mission, okay? And then obviously we want to understand some other things about the science of moon, understanding the magnetic field around the moon, things like that, okay? And the technology demonstration, this is important because everything we do has to do with the technology. We really want to understand how we can push the limits of the technology. For that, we have 2 technologies that we want to show. The first one is the hybrid rocket propulsion technology. That's going to be probably not the first in-space firing of this type of system, because we'll do it beforehand. I'll mention that in a second. But we'll also like to develop lunar-based navigation technologies. That's going to be based on optical information. Okay, so that's another technology that we're doing. That's going to be critical for soft landing. And the first one is also critical for soft landing because there's a possibility that throttled engine will also be hybrid-based. Okay, so that's also useful. Anyway, this is what the spacecraft is going to look like, roughly. It's not a small thing. It's about 3 tons. It's a big system. It's about 2.5 meters cube kind of thing, okay? 2 kilowatts of power, really not small in that sense either. X-band for, video and scientific data, and S-band for communication, basic health information on the spacecraft. We actually adapted a modular design. As you see, the spacecraft is composed of 2 parts, the top and bottom part. The bottom part is propulsion, the top is essentially the payload, okay? So that we can actually use the same approach when we design the soft lander. So we're going to add some essentially landing apparatus to this kind of design, and we'll be able to land this system, okay? And we have some scientific instruments, as I mentioned. We actually have some international collaboration there. That is including the Swiss Lunar Neural Telescope, which is going to be used to essentially look carefully at the lunar surface. We're going to have an optical navigation system, as I said, as a technology demonstrator. We're going to actually test that out. We have some radiation calorimeters and dosimeters in terms of understanding the radiation environment in deep space. We're new to that in Turkey, so we really want to understand that. And finally, we're going to use a radiometer to understand the thermal environment on the lunar surface. We're going to look at, especially close to the polar areas if we could, okay? And this is what the spacecraft looks like in detail. This is what the instrumentation is going to be kind of put in place on the spacecraft. The X-band antenna is steerable, obviously. That has to be the case because that's a narrow-band antenna. And this is the bottom portion of the spacecraft. That is the part that I'm interested because I'm a propulsion guy. When I see the nozzles, that's my part of the spacecraft. The center is going to be the hybrid propulsion. On the sides, you're going to have the chemical propulsion, storable propulsion nozzles, okay? The hybrid propulsion, you see the picture, it's actually almost ready for flight. It actually passed a lot of tests, a lot of motor tests we're going to show you in a second. This is what it looks like. And then this is a video that we actually took in northern part of Istanbul. We have a test site at Delta V Corporation. We actually use this test site to do some rocket testing, and we also did the ground testing for this in-space propulsion system in Şile, which is northern part of Istanbul. So the guys are assembling the test equipment. This is an early version of the test equipment. We did more than 20 tests at ground level at the full duration of close to 300 seconds of burn time. We're also simulating the possibility of spinning it. This is essentially a very high spin rate. We want to make sure that the system operates even at the ridiculous high spin rates, okay? So this is a very short section of the, obviously, the firing, okay? So let's see. The next thing we've done is we actually put this propulsion system on our sounding rocket, which we developed indigenously in Türkiye with our company Delta V. And we actually fire that thing in space, okay? So this is what the system looks like over there, right there on the left, in the nose cone. And this is right before the firing. This is a picture of the nozzle you can see here. This is the rocket that actually takes this system to space, 200 kilometers and over. And this is the assembly of the propulsion unit on the sounding rocket, okay? And this is a video of the sounding rocket. This is now northern part of Turkey, not Scotland. It looks like Scotland, but northern part of Turkey. It is a beautiful place. It's a good place to launch rockets, but very difficult place to launch rockets because Black Sea is small for rockets. It's not large enough. It's not the ocean. So that's, but we still manage to do it. We can get to space there. This is liquid oxygen. We're filling liquid oxygen. It's a sounding rocket that uses liquid oxygen. We've actually done 19 flights with this thing already. It's a commercial unit now. If you want to fly your payload, please let us know. A little bit of a commercial here, but it's kind of a cost-effective way of getting in space. So we use the system pretty much. This is a liquid oxygen ignition test right before the flight. We can actually test our system before flight. Now we assemble the motor, which contains paraffinic wax fuel grain. And then once we did this systems test with the full load of oxidizer, now we're confident and we can actually fly this thing into space. And that's one of the earlier firings from Sinop. You're going to see this. There's no control on this thing. It's spin controlled to make things relatively cost effective. So that's what we did with this launch vehicle. As I said, we've actually completed 3 sets of firings with our lunar propulsion system at high altitudes. We successfully managed to fire the system in space under vacuum conditions, and we fired it more than once. So we had repeat firings. So that's what's needed in the mission, so we kind of managed that, okay? Anyway, so that's kind of shows you the rocket part. I'm a propulsion guy, so I had to show you the rocket. Sorry about that. But let's get back to business. Antalya. Antalya is actually the southern part of Turkey. It's a beautiful, not little anymore. It's a large town. We actually get more tourists, many more times the tourists that is way over the population of Antalya. Last year, I think we got close to 16 million tourists. So it's a very large populated, city. Very easy to get to. There's a good airport. Turkish Airlines actually flies there. So we're gonna hopefully have a fantastic, IAC there in 2026. And 2026 is another important year because we also like to go to the moon with our system, as I described to you. So it's going to be a very important year for us. So Antalya, Turkey, and it's right on the Mediterranean coast. There is tremendous history. So I would love to see all of you people there and love to talk about space and under this ambience of Antalya, okay? We're going to hopefully bring space to Antalya. Thank you very much.